Welcome to Next Topic Podcast. My name is Lo.
My name is Shad.
And I'm Cam.
And the only rule here is to stay on topic and no topic is off limits. On today's episode, we are going to be talking about gender and sexual identity in children's media. So TV, film, toys.
And sexual orientation as well.
Didn't I say that?
Identity.
Oh, sexual orientation.
Before we get into all that, let's start with a little bit of hot topics. Let's talk about hot topics. In the same vein of children's media. Well, I guess it's not children's media. All people like
Yeah, about to say, yeah. Grown ass people being that motherfucker.
Right. So it has been announced that some people's favorite superhero, the Green Lantern, is gay. So yay for the Green Lantern. He just came out the closet. Some people have been given like a lot of backlash to this, like, oh, he wasn't like gay before. What happened? And I know we'll take a deeper dive into like those situations on this topic, but what?
Go ahead. I have a question. But I'm gonna
go
let you...
go with the
well,
question.
like, my question was, I saw something about like this Green Lantern or this Green Lantern that's gay is like a Green Lantern from some sort of multiverse.
Right. Yeah.
Well, the thing is like all the Green Lanterns are different from different places.
Right.
So he could be whatever
anybody,
he wants.
Anybody can be a Green Lantern,
Right.
like the little ring or something.
Yeah, it chooses you.
But
Yes.
I asked because you said like some people are like, well, he's never been gay before, but like it's a
Right.
You don't know all the Green
But I
Lanterns.
think
Yeah.
this one was like named Alan. He's like one of the original ones, like from the
okay.
golden age of the comic book era. I believe from like the 60s. So it's like kind of the big deal because he's like the first one from the golden era to come out as gay or be a different sexual orientation than the rest of them.
Okay.
Right. So this is ahead of the new HBO show about the Green Lantern, in which in that show he would be gay as well. So it is a show coming out that be premiere on HBO from the same
HBO.
dude. So gonna be a little gritty.
Yeah.
There's gonna be some good scenes in HBO.
The same dude who did what?
Greg Berlanti, who did the CW shows.
Oh,
I was gonna say that sounds real
Like-
CW before you even said
What?
anything. The show.
Like the Flash and the Arrow. and
Yes.
stuff.
Yeah, because I think HBO is the same company who own the CW.
Mm-hmm.
So, so that will be coming out real soon. Speaking of superheroes, in our favorite Hot Topics candidate, T.I.
Gosh.
So, based upon, like, if you go back and look at some of our other Hot Topics, we have known that T.I. and Tiny are in the midst of this huge scandal for allegedly, like drugging, molesting, raping women. So, because of these allegations, we know Disney does not play. That the Ant-Man movie is on hold pending the removal of T.I.
Real? He's really in the movie like that?
Yeah, enough. Yeah.
I never watched Ant-Man.
Oh yeah, he's
the
the first two. He got scenes and everything,
Right.
like dialogue, all the
Wow.
shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
4 or 5 scenes.
Oh, that's
Per
deep.
movie.
Right. And this is a big deal, especially
That
like,
is.
those supporting characters in like the MCU, like you can be put on a whole bunch of different
Other stuff. Yeah.
like watching
Right.
WandaVision,
Especially like
Ant-Man,
crossovers and stuff.
The
Right.
girl, like the little reporter girl, no, the scientist Thor girl from Thor, and WandaVision.
Oh, yeah.
She's from originally Thor, so you can go into a lot of the different movies. So T.I. is like
She
fumbling the
reminds me of
bag
Hilary Duff.
with
You
bigger
remember
boobs.
the Lizzie McGuire movie with the dark hair?
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So, not Hillary Duff. But that concludes our hot topics for today.
Can we no longer ever talk about T.I. again, please?
We just might
He been
have
here
to.
4 times.
We just might have to.
Well, until the scandal ends. Because he might be Bill Cosby and put in jail.
He need to. Him, R. Kelly, and Bill. Bury him.
Oh.
And on
And
that,
note,
let's
Shit.
get into the topic of today.
Yes.
So there are a couple things that kind of spawned the idea of talking about this topic. So one being conversations around Bert and Ernie and whether or not they were a gay couple versus just really good friends. And then
Or
also
roommates.
Sesame Street writers coming out and saying that
they're not.
they're not. Yeah, they weren't a gay couple. But a lot of people had kind of assumed that for a long time. The other thing that happened more recently, couple weeks back, Hasbro had released a statement saying that moving forward, the Mr. Potato Head brand was going to be gender neutral. So let me read a couple of little tidbits on that. So when they released this statement initially, I mean, the internet folks went into a frenzy, right? I mean, Fox News was actually covering it for quite some time, and they were in an uproar. Like, they were covering that more so than anything else. What's been going on with the pandemic? They were pissed about Potato Head. However, Hasbro then came out, tweeted. I didn't know this. They tweeted after all the original like uproar and hoopla that, and they clarified that the actual Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head characters will still live on and be sold in stores. They're not going anywhere. So this is really a rebranding.
Yeah,
so
I found that out today.
Yes.
Yeah.
So instead of it being Mr. Potato Head brand, they're calling it the Potato Head brand, where they have that as like, that's being largely placed on the products. And in the bottom corner, they're like shrinking down where it says Mr. or Mrs. Potato Head. So those will still be in the store, but the brand itself will be more inclusive. So I will read specifically what Kimberly Boyd, who is the senior vice president of Hasbro, she said the intention of the brand name change was to be more inclusive and to have the characters still live within the Potato Head universe. And basically, they're just trying to broaden the franchise, right? So, GLAAD, which is an LGBTQ advocacy group, really applauded the decision. They said Hasbro is helping kids to simply see toys as toys, which encourages them to be their authentic selves outside of the pressures of traditional gender norms. So that's what GLAAD had to say about it. And as I mentioned, folks on the internet were mad. I have like so many little receipts and stuff and quotes and tweets and stuff from people, but I'm going to pause there and get what were your immediate reactions when you heard about Hasbro's announcement?
Cameron?
Immediate reaction, without them disclosing that they were going to keep Mr. and Miss Potato Head, was why get rid of a staple for so many people's childhoods? Why get rid of Mr. and Miss Potato Head? Why not just add a potato head and have all three, versus getting rid of the two that's been here and through all the Toy Story movies and stuff like that, and then just having a gender neutral potato head? If we want to do inclusiveness, why not add all three?
So Cameron, I'll admit that I had a similar sort of reaction to you when I was like, well, it's a potato. One, because I never really, it's funny because we are putting a gender on it. We're saying Mr. and Mrs. So I'm sure a lot of kids kind of like, they subconsciously.
We all do.
Yeah. But I never really, I'm like, it's a potato, whatever. But after talking to you about it, I started to think a bit more about, the importance of what sort of images we're showing our kids and what we're saying a man looks like or a woman looks like, because we were calling it a Mr. or a Mrs. And just making it more inclusive. I wasn't like you said, Cameron, like I'm all for adding more inclusive characters, but it was just like confusing to me, like why do you have to get rid of it?
Right. And that's what I thought too. I thought they were just getting rid of Mr. and Miss Potato Head altogether and then just having Potato Head. Right. Like, why not just add two? Why get rid of?
One thing I will say is, sorry, Roshad, I'm gonna let you say that, but after talking to you, I still think it is okay to get rid of me. No, because know what I said. I know, I'm so sorry, but I do think it's okay. Before you get into that, I just want to say that I do think it is okay to actually get rid of Mr. and Mrs. But they still have it, so that's what it is. That's where we're at right now. Go ahead.
So I was like, my initial reaction, so start from there, I was like, good. I'm like, get rid of it, make the potato gender neutral. The reason I looked at you like that, Cameron, we said a staple. I was like, a staple of someone's childhood. I'm like,
I only say that because
Barbie. Let's be clear.
I only say that because he's a big part of Toy Story. You know what I'm saying? Like the fact that he had his own toy and then it branched off and Miss Potato Head had her own toy, and that was a big selling toy. It was a part of you can't really say you can have Toy Story without the potato heads. The first one, there is no movie. Like, there's a movie, but it ain't as good. You feel me? Like, he had a vital portion.
You like Woody, Buzz? I can hear
him. No, but yes. But we talk about those supporting characters. Like, that is a huge supporting character, just like Rex and the
That's true.
Little
Bo Peep.
Yeah.
Oh, can't remember the female characters. So
why does he have to do that?
Right.
Little Bo Peep. Yeah, so I was like, we can get rid of the Mr. and the Mrs. And now that you have clarified, like we have more information on what you actually said, now I'm mad.
Okay.
Right. Because like I said, what I told you, what I explained to people, the whole point I think that people are trying to make is to like make sure that those characters, those staples in your mind that you grew up with are still like the same. Just because they decide to be gender neutral, they still are like the same person. Right? It's still the same toy.
Yes.
Just because you made it gender neutral don't change how much fun you will have with the toy. Or like if a person in your life becomes gender neutral, that don't change who they are.
Relationship with them.
Or your relationship with them.
And the other thing too, Cameron, like how you're saying, like with the Mr., Mrs., and then like the gender neutral one thing that we've talked about before is like that we have a tendency to kind of other people like in these categories, right? And if you have a Mr. and a Mrs., could you imagine a kid, let's say it's a boy, in a group of friends and they all go to the store and, you know, most of them grab the Mr. and one decides, you know, I'm grabbing the gender neutral one. Do you see how it kind of, it kind of ostracizes. Yeah.
Right. Like, or like if you have all the toys and then like I decide I will buy your child, like I'm picking a gift for your 5-year-old or 3-year-old and I get them the other one, the one that's been othered or the gender neutral one. Like what does that, would you like as a parent, like what
are you trying to say about
okay, so yes, that's a great, I'm glad you said that. I want to pull up some of the comments. So Shade Room posted about this a couple weeks back. And I mean, the comments were all over the place. One of the comments, which I was just like really taken aback by, it says, quote, pushing this to your children who are not even old enough to know why they are, I don't know what that means. If you don't see a problem with things like this being advertised to children, you need to seek therapy to see why you think it's okay to sexualize children. Adults can do what they want, but children should not be allowed. I mean, children should be allowed to be children without this ridiculous confusion. So there's a lot to
go, or you want me to go?
You can go. There's a lot to unpack there.
Right. I think where people go wrong is, in which they should seek therapy for, is that when we talk about like gender neutral and like the gender, you know, spectrum, or even like the sexual orientation spectrum, people always equate that to sex. And like having sex with people when it has nothing to do with that. That's like besides the point. So I'm like, people like, oh, like the innocence of a child. I'm like, no, you the one who's thinking about like when someone's gay, like who they having sex with. That has nothing to do with it. I'm like, just because you straight saying, I already think like who you having sex with.
Because you can be straight and not be having sex at all.
Well, you can be gay and not having sex.
Right.
So it has nothing to do with that. Like who someone, you know, chooses to love. It's like the part that's like missing here because you're so worried about what's going on in someone else's bedroom.
Yes.
Right. Some people can say they're gay, but they're here sleeping with women. But you're still mad because you think they're gay.
That is very true.
Right. Yeah, I'm like, somebody could be gay and be married to a woman.
And this other thing of what I find that really sticks out is this pushing this on children. What is being pushed? Like if you present them with something that is gender neutral, you're then not pushing anything on them. You know, you're allowing them and creating space for them to think what they want to think. You know, they'll come to whatever conclusion they want.
I think that's the scary part for a lot of people.
Because they want to box their kids into.
Right, because you lose control. The fact that like you think, oh, my kid can think whatever they want to think. When I want them to think this way, I want my son to be straight. I want my daughter to be straight. And if I control that narrative, then they won't veer to the left or to the right. And with this, it's kind of open in that realm. And they're like, fuck, what am I going to do?
Although a potato is, it's so funny because
Right.
people are contradicting themselves. They're like, it's just a potato, but then at the same
Don't do
time,
this.
Yeah.
don't make it gender neutral
Right.
because
And I don't understand why I was like so caught up in that too. I realized that today, like
So caught up in what?
so caught up in the Mr. and the Mrs. because in all reality, it's a potato. They don't have private parts. They don't have nothing. You know what I mean?
Right, and that's the good thing about it. I like because of kids and like people put like this human aspect onto their toys and dolls and like different animals and stuff. So it is like important in that sense. So I think that's okay. But the other thing I wanted to say about the pushing the agenda, I'm fine. Push the fucking agenda on every fucking body. I'm like, nobody got a problem when the straight agenda is being pushed.
That's
and nobody
true.
got a problem
That is
when the
true.
white agenda is being pushed. And then nobody got a problem with any type of agenda. Push it. Push the motherfuckers over. Run them over.
no, but that is such a good point because no one has an issue pushing that other agenda, right? Saying, you are a boy, you do this, you be that way. And we talk about toxic masculinity and all this stuff. And like all of that is pushed on children at a very young age, which then creates men who don't deal with their emotions, aren't vulnerable, like all these different things, because that's what we say men and boys are supposed to behave like, right?
Yeah. I can't wait till we get to the point where when people look back at this, 'cause I just equate this when people like pushing an agenda to like white people back in the 40s and 50s watching TV. Oh, they trying to push this little, watching the Cosby Show, push this whole black agenda onto our kids. They sound just the same as that. They're trying to push this gay agenda onto these kids. You're going to look back and look fucking crazy.
That is very
It's
true.
the same thing to me.
I never thought about that.
Well, like, are
No,
you pushing
yeah.
this gay agenda or this gender neutral agenda? Yes. I'm like, you want people to be exposed to like a variety of like different things so they can make a decision that's beneficial for them, or they can see someone who they identify with. That's the point we're getting at. Like, so everyone can find someone or something in the world that they identify with that can like help them. You know, like how important like it was for me to like see like a gay person on television.
Right.
Like I think we talked about this before. I don't know if it's on the show, but like watching like Degrassi and watching like Marco, like one of the first gay people I seen on TV. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
So it was like, you know, like I can like identify with this person.
So I do want to come back to seeing LGBTQ people like on TV, but going back to like gender and toys.
Yeah, let's go to gender.
That's another thing is people often equate, you know, people's gender identities with their sexual orientation, right? So if I identify, like if I say my pronouns are he, him, right? That doesn't mean that I'm gay. You know what I mean? Or like that doesn't mean that. It could, but it doesn't necessarily mean that, right? And so this whole idea that by giving your kid a gender neutral toy, they would, let's say, assume a gender that they weren't assigned at birth, right? And then that would mean that they're gay. You know, like it's a whole bunch of jumbling
like,
people are doing.
Yeah, it's also because like it's really just rocking the boat, and it's new for people, and people don't understand it. You know, people get scared of new shit all the time, to where they like, okay, I don't know which way it's gonna go. I'm used to this. This is what's coming out the woodworks. How is this gonna affect me and mine? So it's really an uncomfortable change for a lot of people. But once we get past it being uncomfortable, it'll help shape the way we look at stuff. And I feel like even me getting past, I wouldn't even say I'm uncomfortable with it. I'm just so used to thinking of shit in one way that when it happened, my initial reaction was, well, why are we getting rid of Mr. and Mrs.? You know what I'm saying? So I feel like once we get past that initial shock of change, it'll be a lot easier and smoother for people to be like, okay, this should have been happened anyway.
I don't know. So I don't know. I would only hope that things would get better and like, you know, when things kind of stabilize a bit or mellow out, you know, people would get over that.
Yeah.
But there are so many different things at play that influence the way people are thinking, right? And we talked about this. Religion is one of them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
But religion is slowly falling. Like a lot more millennials are more
Or less religious.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, that's true.
I was like falling.
I didn't know I was going to say it without
No,
being
but yes,
disrespectful
a
to
lot
the
more
religions.
people describe themselves as spiritual versus
versus
being
religious.
traditionally religious. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a good point, Cameron.
Right. Yeah, and also I think it's two things at play here. It's like people like holding on to like something like from their childhood as like nostalgic. Like if like I feel like some people like if they would have did anything to it, they'd have been like it would have been a problem.
That is true.
Yeah, I think that thing is also happening, and then you got those people who have a problem with the actual gender neutral aspect of it, and I think some of the things are being like confounded. Like as Cameron was saying, like he had no problem with the gender neutral. He was like, I just love Mr. Potato Head.
I understand. Yeah.
So it is like two things.
There's two arguments. Yeah.
And that's why I like it being pushed together because like people always like, oh, I agree with that or I like that when it doesn't affect me or it's not in my own home. Like a lot of people like, oh yeah, like I love gender neutral people or like gay people, but then when your child comes as gay or gender neutral, then it's a different issue or different discussion.
Yeah.
So that's why I like the difference. What you were saying, like, oh, just make a different one or make another one. That's why I was like, oh, it's not the same. Like creating like a new Potato Head or like Bert and Ernie, if they were gay, like people like, oh, you used to make new gay characters in Sesame Street. I was like, that is different because like you're supposed to like learn and like love the people who they are and who you already know. Yeah. That's the key, and that's the kicker here in a scenario.
Yes.
It's just to make sure like, oh, the people around you already could be this, not a new person you go out and meet on the street who doesn't like really affect you.
Right, and then by creating that new character, you're still othering, right? It's like, oh, this.
Oh yeah, they knew. They ain't nothing. Like, well, if Big Bird, big ass, big ass, you'd be like, oh, okay.
Yeah, so let's go.
Only 8.
Let's go to like the whole Bert and Ernie thing and like characters on TV. It's so interesting. Folks have talked about and kind of speculated about the sexuality of all these cartoons. And what's so funny is like they say not to sexualize, but then they're doing it themselves. So like we have like SpongeBob and Patrick, right, and Bert and Ernie, whether or not they were gay, and the question is, because a lot of times people say like if you put a gay character or like like two dads in a cartoon or something, that's going to make the kids gay. Right. That's the argument.
Yeah, it don't work like that.
It don't. Because even watching Sesame Street growing up, I never even thought about their sexual orientation and them being in the same house or in the same. That shit never crossed my mind. I was just watching fucking Sesame Street, and they was Bert and Ernie. It never once thought that these two puppets that are orange and yellow are gay.
Right, and that's a thing because that's what people are saying. Like my kid isn't even thinking about that. Yeah. So why you got to make them think about it now?
So here's the however, comma. So yes, that's true. Some kids, it might not cross their mind. However, for the kid who is struggling to accept his or her identity, could you imagine what it means to them to then see on TV like two dads like, oh shoot, this is cool on Sesame Street? Well then,
it makes them more comfortable in being themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's like, yes, and on one hand, like some kids aren't thinking about it, but on the other, for the kids who are thinking about it, it's important for them to see themselves reflected in these like treasured characters.
Yeah, because I will also say like, because people always like want to like sexualize these things. So like when the gay thing comes up, and a lot of people are afraid like what I have to like tell or explain to my child in that. So people caught up like, oh, they're gay. Like, oh, what does that mean? And they thinking they got to go automatically to the sex.
To the sex, yeah.
But when you don't have to go there, you just say like, oh, that's when a man
loves a man,
another man,
or
like
a woman loves a woman.
You don't explain sex to a child at like 4.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, like that's a husband and wife. Like, what does that mean? You're gonna say like, well, he is having sex with her. You're
right.
Like, he just like that's when a mom just loves a dad. I'm like, you can do the same thing like with the gay characters, and most kids will be like, okay, and they will move on. Like, I don't think you need to go into like the whole sex conversation. A lot of people think you just automatically have to go there at that moment,
and you don't. Yeah, I agree.
That's because this generation is so hypersexualized. It's ridiculous, and it's more accessible too. So everything is just about sex.
What happened?
No, I hear you, Cameron. With the internet and their access to internet and everything that's on the internet, it's like it was so different for us growing up.
Yeah, way different.
We had one computer in the house, and you couldn't be on the phone. All that stuff.
Right, and the shit was dial up. You couldn't.
Exactly.
It took too long to load.
Right. Files loaded like that.
Can't get out of it fast enough.
Yeah. So yes, that's a good point, Cameron. So going back to toys and stuff, I'm just curious, what were your favorite toys growing up?
I love Hot Wheels.
Mm-hmm.
Hot Wheels, Legos, the toy soldiers too, and it was all dudes. And thinking about it, one of them didn't have a shirt on.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
like my gay stuff, did I notice that? I probably would have played with him before.
But yeah, thinking about that, like, yeah, the toy soldiers, like, it was a bunch of ripped dudes, and I was fighting with them. You know what I mean? Like,
so would you say that you played with primarily like what folks would categorize as boy toys?
Yes.
Boy toy.
Yes. Yeah, Legos.
Yeah. Cars, that's fine.
Soldiers. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We have some gender neutral ones like Legos and stuff.
Yeah, but.
So, Roshad, for you, as a gay man, do you feel like the toys you played with influenced your, sexuality or who you came to be at all?
No, it had no. I see where you're going. It had like no influence. However, what I used to do, my cousin, like she had like the Barbie stuff. So I should go over her house. They died. They just like play with like her toys and stuff because like Barbie got some good shit.
Houses
and
Ferraris,
cars and stuff like that. So it's like, but like, I don't think it was like Barbie like so much. It was just like all the extra like cars on her drive around. And
it's crazy. I never knew you did that.
Of course you didn't.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And what age did you think? What age did you start like playing with the Barbies and stuff? And did you make a conscious decision to be like, I know I can't play with these in front of other boys?
I don't know if I necessarily was sneaking to do it.
Okay.
I just didn't have it.
Oh,
either.
I got you.
It's not like I have like sisters or like even like that many female cousins to like always like play with it. I remember my mom telling me one time like when I was younger, and I remember wanting this like little set. It like came with a broom and a mop and like an iron board. And
love those things.
And a little iron thing. And I asked for it. Then her thing was like she was like talking to people. It was like telling her not to get it for me because I was like stuff was for girls. But then her thing was like, well, he just like wants it, and I just like give my baby what he wants.
Yeah.
So I remember I had that little. It was yellow.
It's teaching you how to do chores.
Yeah. That's what I was
everyone
thinking.
need to be doing some damn chores.
This nigga want a mop. Okay.
Yeah. Here you go. You want a broom and a vacuum too?
And I remember like having that. So
yeah.
So, but I wouldn't say the toy. But I had more boy toys than female toys. So I would have been in that case. I would have been more straight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we had the same toys.
Right.
I mean, granted, he was in the house more than I was, but
we didn't play with toys then either.
That too.
Yeah.
I probably played with a mix. I did love, like Barbies and Bratz dolls. When those came out, I had big fun with those. Polly Pocket was real fun. But Polly Pocket, like you were describing, like it had a little, like it would have like a little house and like all these different little trinkets. I loved trinkets. So like what you described with the ironing board set, I loved those, the kitchen sets and all that stuff. And I had a friend, she had all those toys, the little cars you drive. So that, and I mean, my brother had a lot of action figures, but we would play with the action figures together and create scenes, like a robbery and all this stuff.
Yeah, we did that with each other too.
Basically like what Andy does in Toy Story. But were we thinking about sexualizing them in any way like that? Or like whether that didn't really influence who I was, other than like I was just having fun with toys.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that. Like, do you think having like the kitchen and set like that made you feel like I'm practicing how to be a woman and in a woman's place and this and that?
No, it wasn't necessarily that, because I grew up with both of my parents cooking meals. It was never like I saw my mom in the kitchen at all times.
Okay. Yeah. But our toys are made to do that.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. But one thing that's interesting is like I just think a lot of kids in general, like, they play house, or like want to be like adults. We're doing what adults do. Like, I would have little fake money and act like I was going to the bank, like all that kind of little stuff. And so like a kitchen set or something, or the ironing, like, you're being an adult. That's cool.
Right.
Right.
I'm the best cleaner in my house.
Yeah, because I for sure did that.
We had chores. I had the most chores.
That's true. All I had was a living room and a water the plants, and I barely did that.
I had to clean the whole goddamn kitchen.
Okay, so that's another topic.
Oh, sorry.
But thank you, brothers, again. But with that was it. I thought that was a really great conversation. Y'all remember to drop your comments in the comment box on YouTube.
The toys make you gay.
Yeah, let us know what you think about the toys. Maybe you hate it. Maybe you think it stinks. Let us know. We would love to debate about it.
That stinks.
Remember to like, subscribe, click that link. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can follow me on Instagram at CoolKeys.
You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Shads_space. That's SHADS_SPACE.
You can follow me on everything, and that's at Clicks by Cam, KLICKS BYKAM.
Toodaloo.
Toodaloo.